And good evening, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I apologize. We had a few technical difficulties here in the very beginning, but we're going to go ahead and go out rolling. So, firstly, I just want to welcome everyone. I'm so glad that you are here this evening. You're joining us. My intentions when creating this event was to first allow us to get involved with our college coaches. Firstly, we have Mr. Earl here this evening, and then just wanted to have a conversation about college. You know, what is college? What does it really look like? And so I just wanted to invite some people that I've kind of seen who have been successful post college to share their experiences and just elaborate on the differences between having a college degree or just working in the work field or having a job on a day-to-day basis. And so with that, I'm just going to go ahead and roll out the first question, and either you can feel free to jump in and go ahead and get started. So my first question I would like to ask is, what led you to go to college?
You want me to jump in on that, Elijah?
I will.
It was a non-negotiable for me. No one from my family on either side had been to college, and just from the moment we were little, it was always like a non-negotiable, something that we were gonna do regardless. And I was blessed and fortunate enough to have a full football scholarship, so it's just something I did. It was never another option. We always were gonna go to college, and that's what happened when we graduated high school. So.
Yeah, I just echo what Mr. Muhammad is saying. Like, it was just like that's the next logical step is you've done high school. How are you going to really support yourself? Like, because, when we say 18, it's like, I'm grown. Okay, well, what does grown look like? Where are you going to go? And very much like Mr. Muhammad, I was a first generation college student. So it was kind of carving out a path for my future family and my kids. So definitely something that was necessary.
For me, it was different from Mr. Muhammad and Miss Woods. My family, most of them had went to college. My mom didn't complete it, but my dad did complete it. And for me, it was just one of those things where I was hesitant about going to college because all this time through high school, they kept telling us college is hard. College is hard. Y'all not gonna be able to do this. You're not gonna be able to do that. So when I got to college, I realized like what they was telling me wasn't really true. College is truly what I made it. I was able to, for like we said, I'm young, Elijah, so I was able to finesse in college. I was able to finesse how I was going to do my classwork. But I will say the hardest thing for me in college was going to class because I didn't have my mama coming in my room and say, "Hey, Emma, you gotta get up and go to class." So for me, that's what made me go to college.
Yeah, it was the same for me. It was a non-negotiable. My aunt is a lifelong educator. My dad has just recently moved into education. Like, I knew the value of it from a very young age. The question was, what was I gonna do after college? Like, college was never a question of if I was going. And then being an avid too, I think like naturally everything you do is building up to going to college.
I like that all of you mentioned that college was non-negotiable. I'm not in college yet, but it's kind of the same thing for me, but it was different, because my mom didn't get into education until after having us. And we kind of like physically seen her. So she would say, go to college, but we didn't know what steps to take to prioritize as it relates to, okay, I'm gonna go to college. This is what I should be doing now. So what would you say to someone that wants to go to college, but don't know what steps to take, or just, don't know how the process looks like altogether?
Yep. Hey, I'll hop in there. So I think basically what you need to do when you figure out that you want to go to college, you need to start doing research. You need to start researching various colleges and universities. You need to start researching particular majors. So figure out, you have to begin with the end in mind. So decide what you want to do as a career. What do you love to do? And then you need to figure out the route to get there. And that's where you decide what college you go to and what you're going to major in. And I'm a huge advocate of going the cheapest route possible. If you need to go to a community college for a couple of years, if you need to stay home and just, stack that bread and have the lower tuition, and then go to a 4-year university, that's the route I would, and that's the advice I would give. But just make sure you do your research first. You don't want to just say, oh, I have to go to this particular college, and then find out that college does not have the major that you need in order to have the career that you want to have.
Yeah, I would also say for me, I was blessed to be a part of like a college prep program. So I was in Upper Bound, very similar to Avid, where they like just expose you to all the different colleges. So I would say look into programs that are meant to kind of help and guide you. That's kind of how I learned that I didn't want to go to school in Texas. And so I was like, okay, I've done this. So what's next? So exposure, like hop on those college tours that your schools are doing, hop on those virtual tours right now that's happening. And like Mr. Muhammad said, like research to figure out what's the best fit for you.
Piggybacking on what Mr. Muhammad and Ms. Woods said, my biggest thing would be to do your research. I graduated North Crowley in 2013, and I said I wanted to go to be a civil engineer. I hate math. Period. I didn't want to do anything with math. But I was looking at, okay, I graduated from college as a civil engineer. I'd be making $95,000 out the door. I got down to Texas Southern University in Houston, and after my first semester, I said, nope, this ain't gonna do it for me. Because after my core classes were done, I started looking at all those math classes I had to take. And I knew that math, with being a civil engineer, was not something I really wanted to do. And that's when I started to learn that whatever you have a passion for will make money. The money will come with it. So do your research. Like Ms. Wood said, do the college tours. I went on plenty of college tours starting at a young age. I went to HBCU college tours. I went to PWI college tours. And what actually helped with my decision in the university I chose was actually what they called a preview weekend. I didn't want to go to HBCU originally because I graduated. I came from Dunbar High School, transferred to North Crowley. So I had been around African-American culture my entire life. So I wanted to be around something different. And so HBCU was kind of out of the question. Then I went down there, just like Ms. Wood said, I went down there for a weekend. They had preview weekend where he had all the Greeks on the yard. I had several cousins at Texas Southern, a brother at Texas Southern. And when I went down there to do my research on the campus that weekend, I fell in love with it. And it's been history ever since.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is figuring out like what you need as an individual. A lot of times when we look at college, we think about like, okay, well, Harvard sounds good. Like Cornell sounds good. Like these big name schools, that's what I'm striving for. But in reality, like me, I'm a good person. I'm kind of smart, but I'm not a Harvard 4.0 student. I think school most of the time is really stupid, like all of the assignments that have nothing to do with the stuff you actually care about. So I'm also an introvert. So I knew going to a big school wasn't going to be something for me that would push me forward. Finally, when I was decided like what school am I going to go to, it was in between Spelman and Dillard. And this is after I had this huge mental shift that I was going to go to an HBCU. And I chose Dillard because I didn't want to be just a number. It was important for me to go to a school that had a strong pre-law program. And it's just like a super intimate campus. So I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give is like, you got to figure out what is important to you and your experience.
Love it. So I know that all of you went to HBCUs, and then Toya, you are attending an HBCU. What helped you all to discover, okay, I want to go to an HBCU, or just in all, just choose the college you all went to?
I'll hop in. I jumped Mr. Muhammad this time, but mine is actually the opposite of Mr. Earl. So when I was in high school, I wasn't actually around a big population of African Americans. So it was kind of like I need to experience my culture in a different way. And kind of like Toya was saying, it was like, hey, there's Howard, there's Xavier, there's Spelman. And very much I flew down to Atlanta, visited Spelman, and like instantly fell in love with how small the community was. It is gated, so it was like very intimate. Instantly, like some of the girls who were giving us the tour were just like, hey, it's a sisterhood here. And like even to this day, I have some really long lasting, like strong Black women who like hold me up and support me. And I don't know if I would have found that niche of women at a different university. So really glad to have picked a HBCU.
Yeah, and I originally did not go to an HBCU. Fresh out of high school, I had a full football scholarship to a PWI, and all of the schools I had been to growing up, from elementary all the way to high school, were very, very diverse. So when I went to the PWI right out of high school, it was like a culture shock, because I had never been in that kind of environment where the only other people of color that you see are athletes. So after 1 year, I transferred to Bethune-Cookman University. It was Bethune-Cookman College at the time, and it was between Bethune-Cookman and Tuskegee. Those were the two coaches that offered me full scholarships, and I chose Bethune-Cookman. So, after the experience I had my first year in college, I said, I'm definitely going to go to an HBCU. Whoever gives me a full ride, I'm gonna give them my opportunity. And to this day, I don't regret it. And even our 3 kids are saying that they would like to go to an HBCU when they get older.
And like I said, for me, it was what TSU called a preview weekend, where it's like the last weekend in March, where they had high school singers come down, and they took you on a tour around Houston. They took you on a tour around the college, and they had all the Greeks come out and stroll. They had fish food trucks on the yard. And so that sealed the deal for me. And there was a guy by the name of Dr. Thomas L. Freeman, Elijah. He was a debate team coach. He just passed a couple of months ago. And the movie The Great Debaters that Denzel Washington did, it's not really true in a sense, because a lot of that is based on stuff that actually happened at Texas Southern University. And so Denzel Washington did his research, and he ended up connecting with Dr. Thomas L. Freeman. And Dr. Freeman is one of the people I met when I was down there for preview weekend. And he said, Emmett, don't ask what Texas Southern can do for you, but ask what you can do for Texas Southern. And after that sealed the deal for me as far as wanting to be at that university. And like Mr. Muhammad said, just being in that atmosphere. Like right now, it's October, it's next month. Next month is supposed to be, I'm supposed to take off work and go down there for homecoming, see all my friends. Like Ms. Wood said, I have friends. I met my friends for life in college. One of my friends now, he's my fraternity brother, and he's a pharmacist. So it's just lifelong connections that you have, that you will get lifelong connections at a PWI, but it's just something special about being at HBCU. It's kind of like a family reunion in a sense.
Yeah, I think the shift for me came my senior year of high school. I went to this conference in DC, and it was built specifically for like young Black entrepreneurs, and it was for college students. So majority of the students were going to HBCUs, but it was just the first example of like Black excellence that I'd seen before. Like at North Crowley, most of the Black kids are either athletes or they have some kind of like suspension, ISS, whatever, like how that whole narrative goes in high school. And so like seeing that there are people who are my age and near my age who have clothing lines, who have books, who are just really like doing things in the world. I'm like, oh, I could do that. I just didn't know, like, I needed permission to do that. And I think that's what an HBCU does. It gives you permission to like go and be the fullest version of you,
Yeah, real quick, Toya, and just to kind of touch on something you just mentioned, we are, working to change that perception that you just mentioned. So we're working very hard across the district to change that perception, because we don't want that to be the thought when people think of any African-American students in our district or at North Crowley or Crowley High School. So I appreciate you being honest and upfront with that.
Absolutely. Always that.
I know these are two of my former students, and they always kept it real.
I would kind of like to add to that. I know I'm not a panelist, and then I would like to kind of hear y'all perspective. So I've been at North Crowley my entire 4 years of, high school education. During my sophomore year, I went to Stephenville High School, and the demographics of that district is just not just white, but they believe kind of in those same, like everywhere you went, you seen, the Confederate flags, and to hear the things that these people believe, it kind of just was like, you know, it gave me a different perception. And so like up until then, like I was like, well, I don't know, why would I want to go to college? You know, I didn't see the purpose of it. I was like, I'm entrepreneurial minded. I want to start my own business. But what helped me to understand the importance of education is that experience in Stephenville. Because not only did I see just a bunch of white people, to be just completely honest, but I seen land, I seen houses, and I seen kids that were in ninth grade driving in just Mercedes Benz and all kind of like to school. And I was like, oh, your mom will let you drive to school. And they was like, no, this is actually my car. And so, you know, not that money is about everything, but what does an education produce? How does it kind of help you financially, like the financial security that it gives you? If you all don't mind kind of just like elaborating on that.
I go first. As far as me, you hear a lot of people nowadays like to say that college is a scam. I'm not one of those people. In a sense, I agree, and from the standpoint of how much it costs for us to get an education. But college will teach you things. But I believe Mr. Hamid can probably agree with this. It's a lot of stuff you'll learn outside of college. Like for me, I've had a rental property since the age of 18 years old. College didn't teach me that. It's just things as far as being in the community, having mentors who tell you, hey, like, yeah, you can have your education, but at the same time, every millionaire has at least 7 sources of income. So one source of income ain't gonna get it. So I've been deep in investing with stock markets and real estate since the age of 17. So college can it can do very well when it comes to education. But at the same time, I'm gonna be honest with you, I hit a huge depression after graduating from college the first time. I graduated initially in 2017 with my undergrad degree. And then I graduated in 19 with my master's. And for a long time, it was a lot of jobs that I applied for that rejected me in a sense. And here I am, a very qualified candidate. I got 2 degrees under my belt and you telling me no. So it's one of those things where education can do a lot of things, but at the same time, with this age and time, I'm not one who will push college on people, because college is not for everybody. It's not for everybody. My brother went to college for a year and he dropped out, but he became very successful in a sense when it came to other things, such as probably picking up a different trade. It's just one of those things where education is good, but at the same time, you have to be well versed in other areas.
Yeah, I agree with Emmett. He must have applied at Wells Fargo for a couple of jobs. But
I would kind of like to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, you know, I remember we had career day when I was in 2nd grade. This was in New Jersey, and everybody asked what you want to be, and everybody says, I want to be in the NFL, I want to be in the NBA. But I actually said I want to be a school principal one day. So it was just I always knew I needed to go to college to become a principal. It wasn't one of those things where I could just get a high school diploma and become a principal. It's just something I needed. I needed a 4-year degree, then I needed a master's degree, plain and simple. That's why I continued with the path that I went on, and that's why I went to college and got my master's degree. So it was just, like I said earlier, it was a non-negotiable, you know?
Yeah, for me, I think one thing, and this is like an emotional thing for me because I was a first generation college student, but when I graduated and I was sitting, they had given me my degree and I was sitting in the, with everybody who's getting their degree. I just remember like thinking, nobody can take this from me. Like nobody can take my education. Nobody can take my experience. And this is the door for me to get into even more. And kind of like Mr. Earl was saying, I went and got my master's at a PWI in culture shock because I had spent 4 years totally, experiencing something else. But for me, it was like, no matter where I went or what I did, like I graduated from Spelman College. And it was just like, I love to say that and honor that because that in itself was an accomplishment. So when you think about financially, yeah, I've been able to maneuver into education very much like Mr. Muhammad and say, hey, I want to be a principal one day and I want to do these things, but it's been easier to accept the path that I'm on because I have these degrees to kind of support me and support my goals. So it's not always about, I mean, we wish we could, and very much like Mr. Earl said, I'm looking into multiple streams of income, but you definitely, sometimes not always about the financial piece that you can take away from that.
Yeah, and relationships matter. Like, I think you go to college and, you know, class is cool, be it on campus and like getting to know people, joining a sorority, joining a fraternity, all of those things are fine and dandy. But the relationships and the experience that you have, first of all, everybody wants to help college students. Everybody is like, oh, you're in college, you're trying, like they see you, and inherently they see the future. And then right now with the current climate of the world, everybody wants to help the Black people, you know? So it's like taking advantage of that and like reaching out to people and not being scared to like put your foot in the door and say, hey, this is the kind of experience I'm looking for. This is what I'm interested in. Like, you have 4 years where you have a roof over your head, regardless, no matter what you do, you're going to have food regardless, even if it's nasty. And you have like, you're in a completely different space. So, my dad always tells me, like, you're never going to be in a space like that ever again in your life. So you just really have to take advantage of that, whether it's building relationships with people that you go to school with, or building relationships in your community. I just think like when you go to school, like be there, like be present, be immersed in your community, in your city. Like, I'm way more active in New Orleans than I ever was in Fort Worth, Texas. And now like what I'm learning here, I can take back to Fort Worth if I so choose, because I have like this newfound like just experience, you know. And I think that's what it's all about.
Agree. I agree.
From that, I just got a few notes because I'm headed to college. But I know one of the many things that I heard, especially Mr. Earl, you had said you had to go in there kind of with strategy. College is not for everyone, and I totally agree. I felt it wasn't for me, but I started to think, and so my strategy was, okay, I want to go to college, Morehouse particularly. I want to get a degree in communications because I want to find myself communicating. And I said, okay, after that, I know that ministry is something that's promising for me. And then after that, you know, motivational speaking is something that I would like to endeavor. Some of the steps that I've already started to take is writing a book. You know, that's something that just leaves a pathway no matter what. You have a book, you're like, hey, I wrote a book. I'm like 17 years old. I want to speak at this event. And so I think that's like my game plan is just like increasing and taking every advantage I have to communicate no matter what the platform is. So what was that like for y'all, like coming up with the strategy? Because, you know, you don't want to go into college and then come out with $100,000 worth of debt and only making $35,000 a year. So kind of just like, what was y'all strategy going in, or a strategy that you are developing while you're in there now?
So let me jump in here. So hindsight is always 20/20. And I'm probably not the best person to talk about this because I did have a football scholarship, but I did, after I had my scholarship and I graduated, I did go into massive student loan debt for my master's degree. And I got our extra loans to help raise a family because we had a new baby at the time. And, you know, I will say this, when people go so far into debt, they choose things that they don't necessarily want to choose. So they choose jobs that they don't necessarily want to choose because it might be paying more than a job that they would actually love. So personally, you know, if debt wasn't an issue, if you can have a job making $70,000 a year and you absolutely love it, or you can have a job making $100,000 a year and you just hate going to work every day, by far you got to choose a job that's paying 70. But if your finances don't allow that, then you have to keep working a job that pays 100,000 a year. So, you know, my advice to everybody, when I talk to people about this all the time, I say, you know, to the best of your ability, stay out of debt, because, you know, when you don't have debt, you have options. You know, do what you want to do in order to do what you have to do, you know. So, you know, I try to tell everybody all the time, when you're making decisions on which college you're going to, what car you buy, what house you buy, think about the long-term ramifications. Because when you're drowning in debt, you go to work and you are a slave to whoever you're working for. You know, like the day I paid off my debt, I had a whole different swag when I went to work that day. I remember it was 2015 and I paid off my debt and I was like, wow, you know, I just felt completely different going to work. And that's the honest to God truth.
I would definitely say, just for those people, like those kiddos who are getting ready to go to college or in college, I did like those big scholarships. So I did like the Dale Scholarship. I got that. I did some of those larger ones that money follows you each year. So some guaranteed money each year is definitely something to consider. And I did work study. So I was an RA in my dorm for like 3.5 years. I worked in the housing office, like any additional income that I could get, I was taking. And then I got very comfortable with my financial aid counselor and was like, hey, is another scholarship coming in? Cool, let me apply for this. So just, again, I think like Toya was instant relationships. So as much as we're building relationships with our peers, building relationships with people who have influence to kind of help you get some money while you're in college is definitely something I would recommend.
And that's how it was for me. At North Crowley, I was very quiet, didn't talk to many people. When I got to TSU, it was totally different. I met a guy, I was working out in the gym, and he kind of influenced me to get involved on campus with student government. And for that opened many doors for me. I literally had 2 university presidents' cell phone number in my phone, the dean of the school in my phone. And I was able to go to places like Cuba as well as Brazil, all because of those relationships. So it's basically just get involved. And like Toya said, it's networking at HBCU. It's relationships. Those relationships you created, me being able to have the dean of the university number in my phone. I was going to the Final Four in Houston as a freshman. Many opportunity none of my peers had, but because I had a relationship with him and he knew how hard I worked on campus, I was able to enjoy things that some of the other students weren't able to enjoy.
Yeah, and two, I think like you know, you got to decide like how bad do you really want it and what are you willing to do to get it? Because me, like I hate applying for scholarships, right? Like the idea of trying to like summarize myself in an essay and say why I deserve it, like I feel like I'm trying to plead to the man, and I'm not built for it. I just can't do it. So what I do instead of applying for scholarships is people I'm networking with that I'm meeting, I'm constantly putting a bug in their ear, like, yeah, I'm a college student. Yeah, and you know, extra funds, like you could give me this, you could give me that. And it's unorthodox, right? But like I would rather go through that than sit and like write an essay and send it in. Whenever it's like it's the same thing for right now. I'm applying to law school, right? And like, you know, a whole bunch of things happen with my fee waiver, and now I'm like in a situation where I have to pay for everything. So I'm reaching out to people who I've met like through my pre-law track, and I'm like, hey, applying to law school, need your help with this, need your help with that. And I'm plus, like I'm above like that mark of the money that I need. And I would rather do that than apply for scholarships. So I think it's just like, if you want it and you're not willing to do like the work, which is write the essay, then you got to figure out another way to get it, because there's not an option of just staying complacent and being like, well, it's going to come to me. You know, and I think and going to a HBCU, going to college, period, is a go-getter environment.
Right. That's good. That's real good right there. I know Mr. Muhammad was saying just kind of reaching, you know, the goal of minimum, you know, the least amount of debt. I think that's most important. I think some people had this idea that the degree I get at Morehouse is going to be better than the one I get from TCC. Now, will I make more connections at Morehouse than I will at TCC? Most definitely. And so I think that's something that I'm trying to decipher between now. Is like, do I want to go to Morehouse my first 2 years or just thug it out at old TCC and do them bases? Because listen, what they say, money don't grow on trees. And so I think that's the hardest part. But then again, I know y'all mentioned that it's about networking, and I know I'm already big with that. Making yourself be known, you know, getting that elevator pitch down, because you never know what somebody wants to give to you. You know, I'm praying that one day I'll just be like, hey, I do this, that, and the other. They say, here you go, $100,000 check, going to go to Morehouse. And so just, I know y'all talked about the relevance of, you know, when you went to college, networking with people and making those lifelong connections and things of that sort. So I would really say, I feel that's important. And I'm intrigued. I'm happy. Like this is golden. Let me see.
Let me tell you how important it is. The guy, when you were at the school the other day, the guy I called on the phone who was supposed to be in this conference call tonight. I told you my little brother who graduated this year and got a job straight out the door making $70K. his major was sports marketing,
Mhm.
but he got a job as a budget analyst for City Financial. He didn't know what he was doing. He knows nothing about analysts, knows nothing about that. But because he was in the right place at the right time, he literally built a relationship. He was in a career fair, and he went over and introduced himself to it was African American lady recruiting for City Financial. He went over. He had a resume. He just took a shot. He introduced himself to her, and he got hired on the spot, making $75,000 out the door. Dude, only 23 years old, making $75K out the door. And he called me, he said, hey, Malik, what I need to do? I said, man, first thing you need to do is don't go get no apartment, stay at home with your mama and stack that money. So it's just stuff like that, man. Relationships really do take you a long way. Like I said, his major had nothing to do at all with finances or a budget analyst. He was a whole sports marketing major. And here he is making 75K doing something nothing about.
And that's a great point, man. And let me also add this. So depending on your career, a lot of time the where you get your degree does not really matter much. Like I can't tell. I've hired so many teachers over the years, and I can't tell you where most of them got their degree from. I've hired teachers that have $100,000 in student loan debt. I hired teachers that have no student loan debt because they took the TCC route and then they went to a state school and stayed home with their parents. The only thing that matters to us in education is that paper, that certification. Where you get your degree has no bearing on what you're going to do in the classroom as a teacher or as an administrator. So just keep that in mind as well. No matter what your career is, do some research and find out, hey, does this Harvard degree really, is it going to lead to more opportunities or more pay than a TTU, Texas Tech degree or whatever, so just be real diligent as you do your research.
Now, just to kind of just like go back, as like all of y'all HBCU grads, the first time, like I didn't learn about, well, I know Toya, I'm sorry, but the first time I learned about an HBCU was my 10th grade year. And I'm like, really? So I was like, what is an HBCU? And I remember I met the president at, because my cousin, he was actually over the tech at Paul Quinn College. And so I met Michael Sorrell. And like that was the first time Black excellence was really in my face. He was like, oh yeah, come to Paul Quinn. And I started to analyze what are kind of like the benefits of going to a HBCU or going to a PWI, because I know somebody is like probably contemplating that right now. And so for me, it was like I started to see you more likely to have a better opportunity when you leave HBCU. So like at Paul Quinn, I seen that he had connections with SMU where you can automatically get accepted to get your master's degree, or when you graduated, like Apple wanted to partner with them, and all types of people wanted to partner with them. They promised their kids jobs after they graduated. And so another thought, or just like this misconception, is if you go to a PWI, you will get a better job than you would at an HBCU. And somebody literally texted me that the other day, and I had to humble myself, was like, dude, you thought the same thing not too long ago. So can we just make that be known that that's untrue?
It's untrue. It's known.
Yeah, it's known. I mean, but it's like we all said, it's networking. So your experience is what you make it, because some people, I can say I know some people who like their experience at the HBCU wasn't what they expected, but I think Toya said this, what are you putting into it? How much are you willing to give to your experience? Very much like everyone has said on here, I was the quiet, like academic. And then when I got to college, I was like, I got to figure this out because closed mouths don't get fed. So how am I going to maneuver and do what I need to do so that I can make the connections that I need to make? Because I can't just expect for somebody to walk up. I mean, like you said, I wish somebody would walk up and like, here's $100,000 for Spelman, but nobody's just gonna walk up and toss it in your lap. So what are you doing itself? So what are you doing to make sure that you're pushing what you need ahead as well?
And I don't want to beat the topic to death, but it's intentional, right? Like when you go to a new space, like I knew I wanted to leave Texas. Like I knew I needed to get away. I knew I needed like some separation. And then when and you laughing, Mr. Muhammad, because it was time, it was necessary. But when I got here and I got on campus, I made a choice. I said, in high school, I was very quiet. I was very reserved. Like, you know, I was involved in some things, but like people didn't have access to me as a person. I wasn't comfortable with who I was. When I got to Dillard, I said, I'm going to have a different experience. I'm going to push myself. I'm going to step outside the box. I ran for freshman class president, not because I thought I was going to be the best and I was going to win. I did it because I knew I had the leadership skills, and I knew it was going to be a step to push me outside of my comfort zone, unlike anything else, you know? So like everything that you do when you leave, like at that point, when you move into college, it's your life. You're doing things for you. You know, your mom, your dad is not there to hold your hand and say like, this is what's best for you. You start making those decisions for yourself. So you have to be intentional, take ownership of what are you doing and what do you want? Because if anything is going to get you there, your HBCU is going to get you there.
Yeah, intentionality is so important. And let me just add on. So let's suppose that our degree from a PWI does get our foot in the door, right? So let's suppose it is a better degree than the HBCU degree. Well, once you get your foot in the door, you have to knock down some walls. You have to actually prove yourself. So it doesn't really matter. Like I said earlier, it doesn't matter where you get your degree from. You have to be impressive. You know, you might meet somebody, you might meet a manager or a CEO that graduated from TCU, and he might see you went to TCU, and he might say, you know what, we're gonna give you an opportunity because you're a Horned Frog as well. But if you don't impress them, if you don't do what you're supposed to be doing, that person that got their degree from Texas Southern, he's gonna take your job. You know, so ultimately it doesn't matter where you get your degree from. What matters is how you perform in the line of work that you're performing in.
And to add to that, you essentially get 2 degrees from HBCU. You get your degree, your paper, but you also get a degree of hard knocks in a sense, because the stuff you go through at HBCU, such as financial aid, dormant issues, all kinds of things. So yeah, so I don't care. You got somebody from Harvard, they can know everything they need to know about that job. But as soon as adversity hits them in the face, they gonna fold. Whereas opposed you have a student from a HBCU, that adversity hit them in the face, we're gonna sit back and be like, all right, we done did this before. How am I gonna finesse through this situation? How am I gonna handle it? So they got a degree from Harvard, but you got 2 degrees from where you came from.
Hey, let me add on, man. So if let's say the power goes out in our school, right? And we hot for about 2 hours. I'm used to that because I've done registration in 110 degree temperature with no AC. You know what I'm saying? So that's definitely from the School of Hard Knocks.
Look, let me say this. Freshman year, Spelman is like, y'all get no AC. So we was hot. We had some box windows and a fan, and we had some box fans in the window. And I was like, Mama, ooh, I don't know. But look, now when it's hot, look, we can make it happen now.
Absolutely.
I don't know about no heat, but listen, I can be hot. To each is their own. I guess we can all choose our own struggle. I would have made a fan at that point. That threw me out because each one of y'all had a story on heat. I'm like, well, okay. Okay. What would be some advice you would just give to someone that's like, contemplating college?
Go ahead, Ms. Woods.
Look, I think we've all said it. If it's for you, then it's for you. And that's just from my experience of being a teacher. I know a lot of kids who are successful who go through the Army, who go through the Navy. There are alternative routes of like some kids are like, hey, I want to get a trade. And some like kind of like Mr. Earl said, some of those folks, some of my kids who graduated some years ago are making like $70,000 because they're a mechanic and they're, co-owning a business with their parents. So, I mean, if it's for you, then pursue it, pursue college and make that your choice. But then really, if it's not, I just say have a plan. You don't want to graduate high school and not have a plan.
Yeah, I agree. You definitely have to have a plan. You have to plan it out meticulously. You need to begin with the end in mind. Like I said earlier, you need to decide what you want to do and figure out your game plan. What's your route to get there? Because one thing you don't want to do is to just blindly go to a college or a university and get $100,000 or $200,000 in the debt. And before you know it, you got a piece of paper that you can't use. So make sure you decide what you want to do as a career and then you get those 2 years out the way, and then you decide what college or university you're going to go to, and the cheapest way that you can get that degree, and then move forward and knock down some doors and make some noise.
Anybody
I
else
agree with
want to
what
answer
they
that?
said. Have a plan for the North Crowley singers. Come see me. Well, you can't come see me yet, but email me. We can talk like this, and honestly, if you feel like you need to have a face-to-face with me, like Elijah came up to the school the other day, we can sit social distance and have a face-to-face. I'm at the school every day, but as far as if you want to go to college, I can talk to you about college. If you feel I graduated about a year and a half ago. You feel I'm too old, I still got little brothers down there at TSU. I can call and say, hey, can you talk to this? Can you talk to this person and let them know what college is like down there? I can FaceTime and say, hey, show them the yard real quick so they'll know what it is. If you want to go another route, I got plenty of friends. I got connections to welding. Mr. Muhammad is a real estate agent. If you want to go to real estate, I can call Mr. Muhammad and say, hey, Mr. Muhammad, I got a kid in here who want to go into real estate. It's just we're here for you. So don't feel like you're ever alone.
Yeah, same. Like, definitely willing to be a resource and help in whatever way I can. I think my one piece of advice is that you got to be honest with yourself. You know, like, whenever you go to school, don't go chasing something for your parents or for anybody else but you. Like, it might sound good to go and get that biology degree, but when you sit in those biology classes and you got to do that biology homework and you realize, dang, being a doctor sounds really good, but I want to be a hairdresser, like, it's just going to cause you a lot more hurt in the end. So I feel like be honest about, like, what do you want to do? What is going to make you happy? When you operating in your passion is when you're going to find your purpose. And I think that's just kind of where you have to live. And that's what you have college for, is to explore that. So if you go and you don't know, like, just follow what you're interested in. Like, you don't have to know right now where you're going to end up and where you're going. I don't know where I'm going to end up. You know, I'm kind of taking it step by step. Like, the next step is law school. We'll see what happens after that. So I think you just have to be really real with yourself.
All right. So I think I know that some people have some questions, and so we'll have a Q&A at the end. But my last question, I think, and so because I know we right at that I don't want to stay on to the hour. But so my last question would be, you know, I've been in debate, and so we have to do our research. And one of the many things that I've found, especially even to live in Texas, for the Generation Z, what was getting ready to roll out by the time, you know, we finish with school, or that period after, you know, we graduate, I think, you know, just in like a nice neighborhood, like the new developed community over there by North Crowley, you have to be making anywhere from $60,000 to $65,000 to live comfortably. And so I know you all kind of just like touched on just having a plan. You know, if it's not college, what is it going to be? Just kind of just talking on the importance of a nice size income. And I think that'll be my last question. How important is that?
It's huge. Yeah, it's very important. Like, you know, I would recommend anybody in high school right now, like especially somebody who's an upcoming senior, get your little side hustle, begin a side hustle that when you go to college, you don't have to lose out on any income. You know, you're 18 years old, go ahead and get your real estate license. It costs a little bit of money up front, but you get one deal. There you go. You pay for 1 year's worth of fees. And after that, you just get more confidence. So by the time you're 22 years old, you might get that $75,000 a year job, but you're making $100,000 a year in real estate. So, you know, just get your side hustles on, and never, I don't care how much money you make, never depend on one income. Never. I mean, I don't care if you are superintendent of a school district, you know, have a side hustle, have something else that you can fall back on just in case you're ready to retire from one, or you ready to walk away from another, your full-time career.
I'm gonna say budget. So I mean, you can make a lot of money, but if you don't know how to budget and save, I came out, granted at the time, now I'm hearing Mr. Earl's friend making $75,000. I wasn't there yet, but coming out as a first year teacher, I was making $50,000. That was like a bonus to work in Dallas, and I was like, "Oh, I'm doing something." But it was like, what, you know, at the end of the year, I was like, "What have I saved? What have I invested in?" And so now I have a home that I'm investing in, looking into, like, again, secondary property and things like that. But you still have to like budget the money you're getting, otherwise it'll just kind of blow, and you'll still kind of be in the same situation you're in before you had all of that money?
For me, it's discipline with finances. I was able to work at TSU the entire time, and so my checks were probably, as in undergrad, I was probably making $1,100 a month, which isn't much. So now that I have a nice salary at North Crowley, I'm able to live off way less than what I make in North Crowley. So it's like I really see it. So I'm very risky. I told you this the other day, like I'm very risky when it comes to investment. So I take the remainder of the money that I'm not really touching. I save or I pay myself a certain percentage, and then the rest of it I invest in the stock market. If I lose it, I lose it. If I make on it, I make big on it. But it's just like they both, Mr. Muhammad and Mr. Woods both said, have more than one source of income. I know me working for somebody for the rest of my life is just not it. It's just not it. I love North Crowley to death. I've loved being able to work with the students, but every morning when I get up and have to drive to work and there's no students there, and I'm like, why are we here on campus? There's no students here. I'm like, working with somebody is not for me. So it's just one of those things. That's what made me get into real estate. That's what made me get into researching. Okay, how can I buy 18-wheeler? That's what made me research. Okay, how can I make this money in stock market? It's I have buddies in the group message now who make $10,000 a day in less than 30 minutes just playing around in the stock market. So it's just all about having more than one source of income.
And I know I keep saying this, but hustle, I just really feel like it comes down to how bad do you want it. When I came to school, I was really I'm not graduated, so clearly I don't have a career to speak on. I'm not making no real grown folk money, but while I've been in college, I've done pretty well. So like I started off and I was working those like little jobs, and regionally your job experience is going to be very different. Like Louisiana sucks. So like the hospitality market, all of those things, that's what I came into. It was a tough transition. But I say all that to say I was working these jobs that were just like hourly. And then once I got my first opportunity through like the volunteer work and the organizing that I was doing to get paid, like I got started getting paid a living wage. And so from there, like that was the standard, right? Is like is the living wage is like getting stipends. And all of that came off of meeting people organically, networking, and then like saying, hey, I really want to work with you. Hey, I really want to work with you. I really want to continue. I want to help build out this movement. I want to do this. I want to do that. So I feel like you just got to hustle. You don't have to work at that grocery store. You really don't. There's somebody that will pay you for what you care about.
I agree, Toy. Hey, Elijah, can I add one more thing? So what I really think everybody needs to look at. So let's say most of y'all 17 years old and I'm 40 years old, and you need to look at me as the future 40-year-old Elijah. And what would a 40-year-old Elijah think about the decisions that the 17 or 18-year-old Elijah made financially and just career-wise? And when you look back on it, you want to be proud of the decisions that you made. And the one book that changed my life forever was The Millionaire Next Door. Like, it totally changed how I look at money. It changed when you see somebody driving a $50,000 car, you don't necessarily see luxury. You see a $50,000 price tag that could have been invested, like Emmett talked about. So we need to make these decisions. You need to just be smart with your money. If I've seen people that make $50,000 a year who are far more well off than people that make $100,000 a year. So it's not about how much you make; it's really about how much you don't spend. So just always keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's I like what Mr. Muhammad said. Millionaire Next Door is one of the first books I read, and that's what I recommend to any person I come in contact with when they ask me about finances. Because I'm not a finance guru, but Rich Dad Poor Dad and Millionaire Next Door is what got me started. As okay, I got a 2018 Honda Accord, but I can afford this Mercedes, but I'm gonna keep my Honda because I know this Honda gonna run to 500,000 miles plus, and even if it run out, all I gotta do is change the timer better to go about 200,000 more miles. So just one of those things that made me look at different stuff like that.
I agree. And Elijah, let me tell you one more thing, man. I wore this suit one day and I got a lot of compliments on the suit. It was literally a suit I paid $5 for at the thrift store. I mean, wow. it was insane. It was somebody that paid maybe $300 for the suit, probably wore it one time and just took it to a thrift store. So just be careful with your money and just plan out and you'll be fine.
I know a big thing that y'all said, and I'm through, is money management. That's something I've been thinking about myself, kind of just like understanding money management. Like I started my entrepreneurship venture like about ninth grade year, so about 3 years, and like there would be like the summer months would be real good for me. Like I would do 2 or 3 websites and make about $100 to $200 off each website. And so I'll have like, you know, and it'll be reoccurring. I'll have like about $500 to $600 I made it through that month, and I'll be like, and you know, I'll be looking at the contracts that I had people. So I said, "Where did the money go?" And you know, frankly, I was eating the money. So now I'm at y'all was eating, you know. And so I had to kind of just understand the relevance of that. And so I just wanted to leave that with the cliffhanger. My next event is next month, and we're kind of just focusing on the same thing. 18 things you should do before you turn 18 years old, and we just want to focus on like money management, real estate, Mr. Muhammad, and you know, insurance and all that other kind of stuff. But there was one question from YouTube, somebody that joined on YouTube, and we threw. Anybody can answer. She said, "What advice could you give somebody that wants to go to college but doesn't want to stay in school that long?" Actually, I heard somebody say this the other day. At least they said if you will do 1 or 2 years, you'll do 4. But I will leave that to somebody who graduated.
That's very true, man. When I got to college, I said, okay, I don't want to be here. And then about my second year, my first year, honestly, I was okay. I can do undergrad. Then when I finished undergrad, I said, okay, I'm done with that. Then I said, I'm gonna go ahead and do my. By the time I got to my senior year, I said, okay, I'm gonna get my master's. After my master's, I said, I'm done. Okay, now I've graduated my master's, and now I'm looking at doctoral programs. So once you get in your groove, that's like I said, high school will frighten you, because I had my teachers, they were like, college is hard. Y'all not gonna be able to do this. You're not gonna be able to do that. College was totally different to me from what they were actually trying to portray it to be. So once you get through that first year or two, you'll be good to go.
Ms. Woods, you go weigh in, or you want me to say something about it?
I mean, I kind of said it earlier, like there are some trade options. So even if you are like TCC has some very good options for getting an associate's degree, that still kind of opens doors for you. But I just echo what was already said in the sense that, I mean, I was like, I can't afford to be here that long. So I graduated early. I stacked some classes, took some summer classes, did what I needed to do so that I wasn't staying the entire time. So there's some different options for you once you, like Mr. Earl said, get your
and one thing people don't realize, when you do go to college, if you look at the tuition and fee schedule, you pay the same whether or not you're doing 12 hours or 18 hours. So if you want to slack off and do 12 hours, you're going to be there longer and you're going to pay more in the long run. So why don't you just, get your groove, do your 18 hours each semester, go to summer school. I've seen people get done in 2.5 years by doing that, and they pay a lot less because they are taking advantage of the financial aspect of doing 18 hours as opposed to 12 hours. Because that's a complete, think about most colleges, they might charge $400 per credit hour. If you multiply that times 6 hours, that's $2,400 right there. So you're looking at like $5,000 a year extra that you're paying for tuition by slacking off and only doing 12 hours as opposed to 18.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing I will leave everyone with is something I keep at the forefront of my mind, and it's just one word, and it's innovation. And it sums up doing something that somebody has not done already, or doing something that needs to be done to that something that has already been done. That is very vital. And even if you're not going into college, you just got to identify that something that's within your creativity and say, okay, this is something I can contribute. This is something that you need, or this is something that hasn't already been done. And I think that's what it takes. Even if you're going into college, you should have that at the focal point of your mind, innovation. What am I here for? What can I establish now? What degree can I get? I was talking to this my friend mom, who is the assistant vice president at Cook's Children, and she said, I knew that I wanted to be in the medical field, but I didn't want to be. And Mr. Earl was saying this, you got to find a way to finesse. And she was like, I knew that I didn't want to get a degree in, or get a doctor and be a doctor. So she said I went and I learned. I took classes in sociology, and then I did a minor or in just healthcare administration, right? And so she went in there being over doctors who may have stayed in school for like 12 years. And she's over them, you know, and making near the same amount of money, but, you know, controls the policy thereof. So, you know, it's all about having innovation. What is something you can contribute, and just like finessing, you know, the game. So, you know, that's it. That's what I leave you all with. I appreciate each of you for joining and just giving your thoughts and leaving us with some tools or whatnot.
We appreciate the invite, man. I look forward to doing it again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome job, Elijah.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Ms.
definitely
Woods.
appreciate the invite, man.
Already, have a good one. All right. I just wanted to personally thank everyone for joining tonight. I hope you got some good that may can help you navigate and decide what kind of plans you have. And I think that's what I want to continue to contribute to this year, is kind of just creating those opportunities for us to kind of just learn, you know, things that we usually wouldn't get our high school year. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed it. If you have any questions, I will say just hit the email up, or I will go ahead and make a post with everyone's email so you all can reach out to the panelists if you have additional questions. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good evening.